welcome in to another edition of Dish and Ish. That's Damon Benning. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're coming to you, well, sort of live. You can watch on YouTube live.
You are looking live.
All right, all right, Keith Jackson.
You know. Oh, is that Brent? Is that Brent or Keith,
oh, no,
Shane?
That's Brent. You're right.
Listen, I get them all confused. Old guys.
The old white dudes that all.
I don't know. Listen,
you were gonna say it?
I don't know, man. Well, considering like Grady or Fred Sanford, or I don't know very many old black guys. I assume that's doing broadcasts. I assume it's old black guys. Shano, how we doing, man? Have you missed me?
We're doing good. Anytime we can get a Musburger, how about a beer, or you're looking live, or any of that kind of stuff. I think we're good.
You are looking live.
You're right. That is Musburger. I had Keith Jackson in my head for some reason.
Whoa, Nelly.
Keith Jackson was like right on the edge of, like, he was older by the time I started watching college football.
Really? That's a shame. Keith Jackson was one of my favorites.
He had his moments, but you could tell he didn't have his
A-game
98-mile-an-hour fastball still.
Yeah.
He was kind of getting by on craftiness, as it were.
Wow.
All
right.
Well, just there would be a couple times there's a specific play that I remember. I was like, oh, maybe Keith Jackson doesn't still have it. It was in the 2002. It was the game between Ohio State and Miami, the national championship game.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a pass kind of down by the goal line.
In 2002, I believe he would have been 73, maybe.
So he was a little deeper into his career at that point.
Yeah.
And he was, for the most part, still very good, but there were just a few times a game, and there was a specific pass. It was Craig Krenzel, good old Ohio State quarterback.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Craig
indeed.
Krenzel, who just threw a total duck to, I want to say, Chris Gamble. Does that sound right?
Yeah, Gamble would have been a guy, number 7.
Okay, and it was kind of down by the goal line, and it was on like a slant or something similar, kind of an inside quick route, and threw a total duck way behind Gamble. I believe Gamble made an incredible play just to catch the ball. Mm-hmm. And Keith Jackson goes, "Oh, what a throw by Krenzel." And I was like,
You aren't so sure?
Maybe not.
So that was 02?
Yeah.
Yeah, Keith, he's probably 73, 74, because he died in 2018.
Yeah.
And I was going to do Dead or Alive with Shane, but I didn't want him to embarrass himself. Shane, what would you have said? Be honest.
I would have said gone, because I remember when he passed.
Yeah, 2018.
Yeah.
And he was 89.
But he stopped doing games full time kind of around that time.
Well, remember, he was a little upset that they were only giving him West Coast games.
Because he still did like the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Because that was a big deal for him.
He was probably one. Can you tell I've been coaching? It's crazy. Right?
Yeah.
Like my voice is a little just raggedy.
Yeah.
It's raggedy. It's okay. Andy and Annie.
Who's been coaching?
Who? The door slammer. That's pretty good, Shane. You must have done this a while. Did he know that we were going to do this? How'd you find that so quick?
That was pretty quick. Shane? I wonder if that's the first thing that pops up when you type Damon Benning in the system.
Keith Jackson. Oh, Nelly. I have a question, though.
Yeah, let's do it.
It doesn't have anything to do with Keith Jackson.
That's all right.
I'm a little late to the sports party. Twitter caught me off guard yesterday. And
okay, yeah.
How does it behoove Saquon Barkley to get the 1-year deal done at $11 million when he wanted 16 long term? So they just guaranteed the money this year, then he's going to hit the market?
Yeah, so I actually wanted
because it's like $1 million more than what would have happened if they franchised him, right? If they franchised him, it would have been 10.
Yeah, so I think there's some incentives in there though.
Yeah, it's like almost $1 million,
which is again not what he wanted, not really even close to what he wanted. Certainly not the years he wanted.
Was it just me, or wasn't the original deal worth $13 million a year, and he wanted McCaffrey money at 16?
Yes.
Okay.
The whole thing has been kind of confusing because they had their little like running back summit yesterday over Zoom where they were, which I don't really know what they were trying to accomplish.
Well, I think they were just getting on the same page that, hey, let's make sure this isn't collusion.
Sure.
And we need to reset the running back market. What can we do together as a group to reset the running back market?
Well, and that's kind of what my question was. Like, what can they do?
I don't know, aside from not play.
Yeah, like if you got all of them to
they'd have to be a collective
strike,
effort.
basically.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what it would be at that point.
It'd have to be a collective effort. But I did see the guy that originally screwed up the whole safety market, Kevin Byard from Tennessee, redid his deal to make room for D-Hop, because the safety market was the one that's been screwed up for like the last handful of years.
Pretty screwed up. You know what is kind of goes under the radar, is not a great market either, is like the middle linebacker market.
Yeah, if you're off the, I agree. If you're an off the ball guy and you don't rush the passer,
yes.
Yeah.
If you're,
we see those guys get devalued in the draft.
Right.
I don't know. I'm with you.
And so it's not just a running back thing, which is why I don't necessarily think it's collusion.
Yeah.
I think it's priority.
It's kind of a strong word, right?
I think they probably were asking themselves that. That's probably part of what the meeting was yesterday. And I guess, I mean, you have a unique kind of situation on this, having obviously been a running back. I wonder if there's any fear, because you brought up the perhaps just sitting out as a group, right? Do you think there's a danger in doing that they might prove the owners right?
Well, I think they're at the mercy of analytics.
Right.
So what's happening is like points per dollar figure when these general managers and these gurus like sit down to the table for guaranteed monies and contracts.
But let's say they all do. Let's say the top 20 guys sit out that don't have, like McCaffrey's got his deal, so he's not sitting out, right? Let's say the top 20 guys without deals.
If he took one for the team and they said, hey, listen, you're one of us, and I know you're getting yours, but hey, for the sake of the greater good, will you chill? You think Christian's going to be like, yeah, man, like,
I absolutely do not think he would do that.
Okay.
I don't think most people would do that. Right?
No, probably not. Right? I mean, it would have to be super strong cause.
You would have to see something egregious. Like they would have to come to you with proof,
like
of
human atrocities.
Yeah, human atrocities, or like just even proof of like, hey, I've got these text messages or emails or whatever. They are colluding against us.
They don't.
Right?
They don't want to pay us.
You would have to have proof.
Yeah.
Right. For somebody who's already getting paid to be like, no, I'm good. Like I'm gonna walk away from. I'm gonna make the people mad that paid me.
You realize though, Ravi, this has been happening
for a while.
So my senior year heading into Carolina.
Okay.
They had Anthony Johnson and Tim Biaka-Batuka. They had a guy named Scott Green. He played fullback.
One of my favorite names of all time, by the way. Biaka-Batuka.
Listen, so
Michigan, right? Michigan guy?
Oh, yeah. Listen, knowing your personality.
Yeah.
Biak would have been a Robbie guy.
He would have been one of my dudes.
Super higher level thinker.
I loved him as a kid.
Very matter of fact, though. So he was super pragmatic.
Okay.
You know, he taught. Biat was one of those guys that was really, really smart. He's originally from Ghana.
Yeah.
His dad got a job as a professor.
Okay.
Teaching at university.
Okay.
In Montreal.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he had this thick French Canadian accent, but
that's incredible.
He was as African as a Zulu warrior.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
So anyway, so it could have been Denver. I'll never forget this. We had the cake where the wax got super wet, waiting for my name to be called.
Yeah.
I remember my agent called about the 6th round because I could have sworn I was going to Pittsburgh. Like that was the team. Hey, we're going to call you. And, you know, we're waiting to blow out the cake. And short story long, right? Turned out to be an undrafted free agent. Miserable day, by the way. I'll never forget that Sunday. And ended up being a good day. So we're looking through the 3 teams: Denver, Pittsburgh, Carolina. We decided on Carolina because Biat was just coming off the knee injury, and Anthony Johnson, we didn't think was like an every down back. Like, okay, we could have done
You thought you saw an opportunity.
So they brought in 3 young guys. Myself, can't remember. The other back didn't last for very long. And there was another guy named Fred Lane from Lane College.
Yeah, yeah.
Fred Lane from Lane College ended up winning that job as an undrafted free agent from D32 Lane College. I didn't even know where Lane. I thought people were playing with me because his last name was Lane.
Yeah.
But I remember I ripped up my hamstring pretty good in camp early.
Mhm.
Biot was not quite ready to go,
Not
and they wanted
100%
to
yet.
move Anthony Johnson to fullback. And Fred Lane had like 2 really good productive years, maybe 2.5.
I kind of remember Fred
He
Lane.
ended
Yeah.
up, and this is interesting because he would always tell these stories about his girl,
Mhm.
and oh man, my girl this, my girl that, and I asked him what happened to. He had this scar above his
Oh,
head,
yeah.
and he got hit with a cash register, and he like had these crazy stories, right? But it turns out, like, I don't know, I'm probably misremembering. She maybe ended up killing him
Oh,
in like a
jeez.
domestic dispute later on.
Oh, wow.
But he won the job. And I remember Joe Pendry at the time, who was our offensive coordinator. He used to call me Fort Benning. And he had like this accent. We'd gotten him from Buffalo. And they were talking to us about dollars and cents. And so one day it was me, Tim Biakabatuka, and get this. I swear to goodness, this is a true story. Ray Caruth.
Oh, wow.
We end up going to get CDs. Best Buy had just opened in Charlotte.
Okay.
Okay. Just opened. They had CDs. Ray Caruth ended up, yeah, you got to, I may be misremembering the Fred Lane story. Look up Fred Lane while I'm talking.
Yeah.
Ray Caruth ended up buying, I'm not playing, ended up buying like 40 CDs. He loved music.
And that time they weren't cheap.
Dude, they were like 25 or $30.
At least, yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man. So, Biak got a couple of they weren't HDMI cords. They were some other cords. They were audio visuals. They were the
RCA.
Yes.
Yeah, the RCA cards.
So we got jacks to hook up to projectors for video games. Like we had a couple of days off in between camp. And I remember Biak Batuka sitting us down with some of the running backs, and he was talking about finances and how running backs are this and running backs are that. And I remember he said something I'll never forget. He's like, hey, listen, don't come back from injury until you can really practice, because all they want to do is get you on tape so they can cut you without having to pay you if they release you. I'm telling you, it's like business 101, right? But he was that kind of guy.
Yeah.
He just was very smart.
Playing
He was really
chess.
savvy. Yeah.
He was playing chess.
And
yeah.
Sam Mills had taken some time to invest in him, who was playing middle linebacker. And we had a really mature team. We had John Casey and Sam Mills and some of these guys that were just really savvy. And I remember in our next couple of running back meetings where they were going to put Biaka Batuka, they were going to hold him out.
Mhm.
And I remember Pendry saying, we're going to play the long game with our money.
Yeah.
I'm dumb as all get out, right? First year, I think, $10,000 is a ton of money.
Sure.
Man. I'm like, ooh, wait.
Yeah.
Right. And, because I remember when I got my injury settlement when I first left Carolina, like I thought that money was like long money,
like real money. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy,
Right.
right? It was like it would have only covered a couple of round trip flights, right? It's like you do the taxes on like $15K, and it's like
Yeah, it evaporates in a hurry.
So anyway,
Yeah.
they've been kind of doing this, right? They got the guy on the cheap.
Yeah.
They got a couple good years out of him.
Yeah.
And then decided whether they wanted to pay him or not for the re-up.
Yeah.
And this was mid-90s.
Yeah, this was mid-late 90s.
Right? So it's like it's kind of been going on for a while.
Yeah.
Now it's just getting talked about.
Because back in the day, the high profile guys still got paid.
Yeah.
That's where it's
they would run you into the right.
That's where it's changed. Is at the top of the market is where it's changed.
And so maybe I think in the sports world,
the middle to bottom of the market has been like that for a while.
Right. It's
the
like
top of the market.
It's like when you get the new guy at work.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the guy that makes. You don't want to be at the top of the payroll.
Yes.
You kind of want to be somewhere in the middle.
I like upper middle.
Right. Like because
you want to be fairly compensated,
yeah.
but you don't want to be expensive.
Right. Right. And I think that's where they started
to
kind of
slap sales all the time.
Running backs.
When guys make too much commission in sales, they let them go.
Oh yeah.
Because what they have to pay them doesn't match
Oh yeah.
what they're bringing in, even though they're bringing in a ton of business.
Oh yeah.
You're right on the Fred Lane deal, by the way.
Was that?
You were dead on.
Okay.
No pun intended, but it was. Yeah.
Was it her?
It was. Yeah, it was his wife at the time was convicted of voluntary manslaughter.
Oh yeah. I caught him slipping up, and she wasn't having it. Yeah. But he used to tell these stories. I was like, man, you must. And I remember this. I was like, you must really be in love
to put up with some of the.
Well, it's just like it was foreign to me.
Yeah.
Because, and this showed in my first marriage because I was so bad at it, but I never wanted to get married. I just wanted to adopt. All I really cared about were kids. Like I wanted to adopt. I didn't want to get married.
Yeah.
And so I just like, there's no way.
Yeah. You're just like, why would I put up with that for something I don't really want?
Yeah, and you got to remember, we're like 23, 24 years old.
Yeah. So he's young. I mean, that's young to get married anyway.
Not a snowball's chance in heck. And he, and it was just, it was just really weird. But I'll never forget that, man. Like, Caruth was our barber, and it was so bad. That's when I knew culture was important.
Sure.
Because, I happened to be there in 96, 97, where they're coming off the really good year.
Yeah.
Making the push for NFC championships. And they lost to Dallas the previous year in the I think it was the NFC championship.
Yeah.
And we didn't have good We didn't have good chemistry that next year because we got a couple of high price free agents.
Sure.
We got Michael Barrow. We got a couple of guys, and I just remember it was just really dicey.
Yeah.
We had a guy, Lamar Lathan, who was a fantastic linebacker out of Houston, who didn't like that Barrow made big money, free agent, kind of played. They didn't talk. We had a couple of meltdowns in training camp where Kerry Collins and Wesley Walls did a skit.
Okay.
And it was...
Didn't go over well?
No. We had an offensive lineman from, I think he was from SC, Roberto Davies Garrido.
Okay.
Or Garrido. It was a hyphenated last name.
Yeah.
And Kerry Collins went into making fun of his hyphenated last name.
Oh.
And Roberto didn't appreciate it, so he socked him.
Oh.
Yeah, swelled his eyes shut. And that same night, they're doing skits going into character for rookies.
Yeah.
Wesley Walls wasn't a rookie, but he was making fun of the skit, and he kind of went into this pretended to be urban.
Okay.
And guys like Musim Muhammad
didn't take kindly,
didn't appreciate it.
Sure.
And so the next day we're out at practice, and Kerry Collins has got on sunglasses because his eye's black. And,
I remember that.
Oh, I'm dead serious.
I remember the Kerry Collins sunglasses
It was
thing.
so dysfunctional.
I had no idea that was the
And
backstory.
this is the same team
that
had balled their brains out. I'm wetting my pants because I had never seen
anything like that.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And it was one of the worst. That season disintegrated. I mean, it evaporated in a hurry.
Yeah.
And we had really some really strong guys. They just didn't play the key spots. Like Michael Bates was an all-pro kick returner.
Yeah.
Rocket Ishmael was a really quality guy. John Casey, our kicker, great quality guy.
Right, yeah.
Sam Mills. It was so... It was so divisive in-house. We just couldn't really
and in key spots
overcome that season. Just couldn't.
Yeah.
And so I knew right then and there, I'm like, they can say what they want about being professionals and getting paid, but you better be able to figure out how to get your composure to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
Like that ultimately still matters.
People never learn.
No, it's crazy.
Right?
No, I'm 100%.
Some people never. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how mature you are in the rest of your life. There are some people that when they're slighted, they're embarrassed,
just can't function.
They're ashamed. They cannot figure out a way. And I'm not saying they should have to, but to be an adult, a lot of times you have to do things you don't want to do.
And how often does it go your way all the time?
Almost never.
Right?
Right. I mean, let's be real.
Oh, I'm telling you.
In order to be a functional adult in any profession, usually you are going to have to bite the bullet at some point and go to work on a day that you don't want to go to work.
Hey, listen, full disclosure, I mean, like the last probably 4-5 months, right? What are we in? Almost the end of July?
Yeah, it's almost August.
So let's go April, May, June, July. So let's go March, because this was right after, kind of towards my birthday. Just my personal life was kind of in disarray, right? Just a lot going on in a multitude of areas. And I remember thinking clearly, if it wasn't for my kids, like this could go a couple of different directions.
Sure, you could get off the rails a little bit,
right?
Yeah,
because my personality at its core is to be a little high strung.
Okay, sure.
What I'm good at is recalibrating in the moment. Like
okay,
that's like
I could see that.
It's like I can all of a sudden get it together. It's like in heated discussions, like I can I can just usually recalibrate.
You can keep your composure.
It was getting away from me.
Yeah.
And all I kept remember, like, I'd have some of these days, oh my God, it's when it's raining, it's pouring, and it just kept compounding and compounding. And then we got surgeries and bills, and it was getting up there. And I just remember I was thinking to myself, I'm done. Like, because my natural tendency as a dude is to withdraw.
Yeah, yeah.
And plus, I'm supposed to be the fix-it guy. Like, people are usually, hey, I need this. Hey, can you do this? Hey, can you help me out with this?
And when you're the fix-it guy and you can't fix it,
it happens
that's
to
about
me.
the worst thing.
Right. Yeah. So, I've kind of like disappeared for a couple of months. And the only other time I could ever remember getting kind of that low was during my divorce.
Yeah.
In like 11 and 12. And so it was kind of a scary place to be. And I just remember, okay, hey man, you got to go to work.
Yeah.
Like you have to go to work. And even if I'm only going to be good for 5 or 6 hours a day, it's got to be
3 of them have to be at work.
Yeah, right? Like I just wasn't going to bring it to work just because I kept thinking, I got Maya, I got Caleb, I got Micah, I got Zoe. Like at some point you just have to like push through.
But not everybody has that.
And it's not always healthy.
Sure.
It can
be, but
it's not always healthy.
But a lot of times it is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times
instead of quitting,
instead of withdrawing, instead of like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, because that can be self-sabotaging, right? And instead of doing that, you push through. And listen, you probably shouldn't push through without like talking to somebody or maybe like seeing a therapist or whatever.
Yeah.
But
you people could call you Ben Simmons.
Most of the time you need to push through because you can't just quit, otherwise everything falls apart, right? And the thing for me, it's your kids. For you, for me, it's being diabetic. It's like I always need insulin, so I know I have to keep going to work, right? So that's the thing in the front of my mind all the time, because I've been divorced too. There are times I didn't want to go to work. There's been times where I just didn't like my job that much, and like I deal with some like anxiety and depression anyway. And so
isn't that crazy?
There's been days where I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. And then I remember, oh, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And sometimes
unless
you hate it,
unless you're really going to go there.
I would say unless you're in the place where you're like for real,
the darkest of darks.
Right. Yeah. And it's always been hey, maybe I take a day. I'll give myself like a day. When I got divorced, okay, when my ex said like, hey, I'm done, I'm out, I took 2 days. I didn't go to work for 2 days. And then I really thank my boss at the time for this. She was like, hey, I can get you more time off, but you need to come back to work. And I was like, I really don't think I'm ready. And she's like, I've been divorced. Trust me, you need to come back to work. And so I did. I took Thursday and Friday off. It happened on a Wednesday night. I took Thursday and Friday off. I took the weekend. And then I went back to work on Monday, and it was the best thing I could have done.
Yeah.
Right. Because sometimes, and like, listen, I went to therapy. I did the whole thing. Right. But I had to keep going to work. And for me, it was, listen, I got to pay for insulin. I got to get my medical stuff. I have to, for you, I got to take care of my kids.
Yeah. I remember. That's funny. Like not hee ha ha.
No, but I know what you mean.
So your thing was, I have to be able to provide this for myself in order to sustain.
To be alive, yeah.
I remember clearly I told myself, I am not going to be the guy who doesn't get to see his kids except for select
Mm,
weekends and holidays
mm.
as the black dad that's not going
The
to be
absentee.
the absentee dad.
Yeah.
I,
You didn't want to be the stereotype.
oh, that is,
Yeah.
and I can. I'm not laughing.
No, but yeah.
I can admit that now because it was the total driving
Yeah.
force. I'm going to be better. So I remember in mediation in the parenting plan,
Mhm.
and people thought I was crazy. Like, well, she's your neighbor. I was like, yeah, like
Yeah.
she lives 65 seconds from me.
Yeah.
Do you know why? Because this
So you
is
can be around your kids.
not
It's not about you.
not about me. It
See,
is.
and honestly, that's so much harder than what I went through.
Oh, I don't know. I
No,
mean,
it is. No, I swear.
I'd rather try to stay alive.
Well, no, but I mean in terms of the actual divorce.
Oh
Because
yeah,
we didn't have kids, we didn't have anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen her, I think, since the day the thing was finalized.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled about that. Like, I
still in the same city.
no, I think she moved. I don't really know. I
Yeah.
think she moved though. I think she went back home. She's not from here originally. But if I like, I have so much respect for people that have to still
Mm.
either raise kids or like
Mhm.
they have each other in their lives, and that's so much harder. That like mine was like a breakup with like a lot of paperwork is basically what mine was.
Yeah.
It was a traumatic thing for me at the time and whatever. But when it was done, it was done.
Mhm.
It's not something that I had to keep dealing with.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because in this weird sort of twisted way, just as the oldest boy,
Mhm.
so not necessarily with Maya as the female,
Mhm.
like Caleb he asked those questions
Yeah.
of like perseverance and pushing through because he sees his mom and I get along well, and I told him I was very
Mhm.
honest, right? Like, I was deathly afraid to not be able to spend time around you.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, fortunately, I didn't say this to him, but in my head, I was like, fortunately, we were in different phases of our life. Like, she was just starting the phase of, okay, I'm going to go do my thing now.
Mhm.
And I was like, shoot, I just want to parent.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I
You just
don't
want to be
care
a
what
dad.
else. I just want to be a dad.
It goes back to the thing you were talking about. All you really cared about before
Yeah.
was the
So,
kids, right?
yeah, one, 1000%.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, um, the first 3 or 4 years, I know everybody thought like, "Oh man, like this is cool," or whatever. Oh, must be an easy relationship. Well, she had kind of not checked out. I don't want to speak ill of kind of what her. She had to go figure some things out. It
Sure.
gave me time to reinvest, so they were with me all the time.
Sure.
Took them to practice. I
Yeah.
mean, they were little. I carted them to everything.
Yeah, I mean,
The
this was
off season,
10
the
years ago,
workouts.
right? So they were little.
Yeah, took them to work.
Yeah.
They were always with me at my old job, and I remember my boss at the time, still a friend of this day, saying, "Hey, listen, you got to stop bringing your kids to work. Like this isn't gonna work."
Yeah.
And I told him, and this is kind of leads into Saquon Barkley and back to where we started with going to work, even though
Yeah. You maybe don't want to.
he said, "Hey, okay, Shane, do you remember this?" Shane was there, and I was mad, right? Because I would see other people with their kids there. Some people were bringing their goddamn dogs to work.
A lot of that,
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember. I
So I was
remember some of that
mad,
at the old
right?
place.
And I was like, "Hey, man,
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, if we're going here, you got to be prepared to go here, because I'll take my black ass and I'll be so in the wind."
If you make me choose between kids
Yep.
and job, I'm choosing
Yep.
kids, right?
Yeah,
Like that's
I,
yeah.
I said those words.
Yeah.
Because I'm still kind of hurt, right? I mean, we're fresh off of this deal, and I'm very passionate
Yeah.
about the kiddos. And he knew right then and there I was willing to walk.
Yeah.
Like, and I think when you want to negotiate and you want value versus worth, and you want to figure that out, this is where this came from. Because I said this on Coffee and Cream about a month ago.
Mhm.
about negotiating, and this is where this came from. You always have to be willing to walk away from the deal.
Especially if you're going to threaten it.
If you're not willing to walk away from the deal,
you're not going to get your value.
You're just not going to get your value.
No. And it's
you just and I know it's like, oh, it sounds easy. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew
you were willing to walk.
I just knew I was willing to walk. And it was a very intense conversation between he and I. And this went on 2 hours. I'm talking knockdown, drag out. And, I'm going to say what especially if I think I'm right.
You're going to say what you need to say.
It's coming out.
Yeah.
And I remember, he called me back a couple of days and he's like, okay, hey, listen, let's cooler heads prevail. Let's
figure this out.
Let's get this figured out.
Yeah.
Now I tried that one other time.
Yeah.
And, my boss said, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to take you up on your offer. I'll help you figure out something else different to do.
Yeah.
But I was still willing to walk, right?
Well, and that's the thing. It has to be
legitimate. And he and the guy that I had this conversation with, he's not only one of the best business people in the Midwest, he's one of the best business people in the country.
Yeah.
And he and I just had breakfast not too long ago.
So you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it was tough, right? I mean, my parents were like, oh, tough deal. And he was in your first wedding. And I was like, hey, man, from his point of view, like, I just don't think, like, my value and my worth were two different things.
Sure.
And, right?
And now,
he didn't value me as much as I thought I was worth.
Right. Yeah.
So, and sometimes it happens.
Ironically enough, that's probably flipped.
Oh, totally.
Where you're worth more than probably your value.
Yeah, I'm a little insecure sometimes, right? Especially when you go through some struggles.
Oh, yeah.
And it appears, thank the Lord, that I appear to be worth more to some people than I actually think of myself.
Yeah, I think you probably think less of yourself than almost everyone else around you.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I have said, like,
professionally at least.
Yeah, because I've had, I've just been in a rut for months, right? Yeah. So my self-esteem is not.
It takes a hit.
Great.
Yeah, I've been there.
But it's probably self-inflicted.
Yeah, usually it is.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Like, usually there's an outside factor that kind of starts it, and then the rest of it is you.
Well, sometimes, isn't this weird? Sometimes how difficult it is to forgive yourself.
Oh, you're the hardest person to forgive.
It just seems so unnatural.
Yeah.
Right, because we're kind of selfish by nature. So, like, if we can inflate our own.
But it's so much harder to forgive yourself than it is to inflate yourself, and so much harder than it is to break yourself
90% of the time, other people have already moved past
on.
It.
And maybe,
and you, the individual, hasn't.
And maybe didn't even really think about it in the first place.
I know, right?
How often does that happen?
A ton.
Where
a ton.
You still dwell on a thing.
A ton.
Can I be honest? Like, truth telling time. Okay.
Well, it seems like that's kind of what this is.
Yeah, this is a little therapy session here. I like it though. I think everybody else like it too. So, you're a very bad texter.
Yes.
You're very bad at texting people back.
Yes.
That's a huge insecurity for me. Like, and I'm not doing this to call you out.
No, it's cool. I'm learning.
Totally
I'm learning.
honest, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I will send a text because, like, we're cool, and I know we're cool.
Very much so.
But, like, there's still, like, a little bit of insecurity there for me. There just is.
Okay.
And part of it is, like, I think where we're at professionally, right? Like, you're very established in the thing I want to do. Yeah. I'm less established. Like, I don't want you to feel like I'm using you to get where I want to go.
Okay.
And
okay. I didn't. Okay.
Because I genuinely like spending time with you.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Fair.
But at the same time, I understand you could help me get to where I want to go. So, like, it's a really strange dynamic.
This is something else. Okay.
Right?
Do tell.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm vibing.
And so sometimes I'll send off a text, and knowing full well, especially when we first started talking more, it was way worse than it is now. But every once in a while, still. No, it was way worse on my, like, perception of it.
Yeah, okay.
Like, you're about the same in terms of texting people back, right?
Right.
But my perception of it's changed because I just understand, like, oh, he's just bad at texting people back.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you, like, think about it, and then you get busy because I do the same thing.
98% of the time, that's what it is. Especially if. So my main problem, I have a few, but my main problem is.
Yeah.
I'm stretched so
Yeah, you're the
thin,
busiest person I know.
and I'm not good at. Okay,
You're not
so
good at saying no.
yes,
Yeah,
I'm Ravi. I'm so bad with boundaries
yeah,
and establishing
like
boundaries.
healthy personal boundaries.
Healthy, like this is what I need help on.
Yeah.
I'm I just responded to a deal for Rotary.
Hmm.
I don't even have any idea if I can pull it off. I just know that I'm gonna
Yeah,
try
You can
be-
do it.
because when I hear
yeah,
who it's for
because you
and what
want to
we're
help
doing, I
people.
want
You
to
want to
help.
be a part of it,
I want
right?
so there's two places where I go wrong.
Yeah,
Number one, I assume, and maybe it's incorrect, maybe it's not. Most people don't want to hear about what I'm going through. Like I'm big on I don't want to make my problems
yeah,
your burden. It is not your burden. Because I'm a little scarred going through divorce
yeah,
where I told myself, I don't want to be responsible for your feelings I just don't.
yeah.
Because I remember at the very end, this is what it was
Hmm.
in a nutshell. It was, I don't think this is going to work. I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm afraid that you're going to be the same person in 10 years.
Mm,
And I was like, and that was
sure.
about the cadence.
Yeah,
And it was pretty matter of fact. And, she's like, hey, after CWS, I know it's a busy time for you, but after that, like, I'm good.
yeah,
Sure enough, like after CWS was over, like got an electronic email, like the file, like whatever. But
yeah.
the kicker was, um, and I asked like if like, are you sure, this, that, and the other. We are doing this thing called heart care. And I'll never forget this. This is crazy. She
Hmm.
said, you don't understand what it feels like to be with you. It's oppressive. It's like
Oh, wow.
oppression. And and I was just thinking to myself, because I'm an empath,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I'm trying to feel what she's feeling.
yeah.
I'm trying to see that perspective, and I'm like, am I asking too much?
Mm,
Like, am I asking too much? Is it that bad,
yeah,
right?
right.
So what do I go out of my way to not do now?
Ask much,
Ask for anything at all.
which is really tough.
It is miserable. My life coach makes fun of me all the time.
Yeah.
He said, and it's Rezak, right? Like he does a lot of philosophy. He's like, why is it so hard for you to ask for help?
Because you don't want to feel like a burden to people.
I just don't want to be a burden.
See, and
And
I
but
totally get that. I
okay,
really do.
but what's the backhanded side of that? So what do I do in the meantime?
You withdraw.
And I go out of my way to make sure that I'm always trying to help.
Yeah. Because if you're the
That's
opposite of being a
that's my
burden,
that's my makeup,
the
right?
opposite of being a burden
Oh,
is to lighten other people,
yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
how do you do that? By saying yes to whatever they need.
So if I said, "Hey, if I would just simply say, "Hey, Robbie, I'm off the grid from, I get the West. I'm off the grid here the next couple weeks from 5:30 a.m. till probably 11:50
Yeah.
a.m. Anything you send me in between there, I may not get back to because just like today,
Yeah.
I have 17 orange tabs.
Yeah.
It's not those people's fault.
Yeah.
They don't have any idea what I'm doing. Because do you know what I didn't say? Do you know what I never told our listening audience? Hey, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks because I don't, I want to go be with my team. I'm going to go coach
Yeah.
because I don't want to mess up the flow of the show.
Right.
I want to make sure everybody that is listening is still going to
Keeps
listen.
listening. Yeah.
So I don't say anything.
Yeah.
But like if you hear me talk or you hear me say things or I'm coaching you, I'm this supremely confident, directive, leave no doubt, very clear in my message kind of person.
Hmm.
But when it comes to other people's feelings and I have to guess,
Hmm.
I always err on the side of caution. But what's my number? What's
err on the side of it's your fault. That's where
what?
you
But
err.
what's my number one thing though for me? I'll say, hey, people are like, golly, I can't believe. Like, how are you not getting mad at that guy on Twitter? Or gosh, you guys just had this thing. How do you not take it personal? So my mechanism is, I want to know.
Yeah.
It may hurt my feelings or whatever, but I hate guessing.
Yes.
However you feel, just tell me. Put the responsibility on me. I'll figure it out.
I would rather have a hard truth than
guess and be wrong.
Than an easy guess.
So
right?
I always tell people, I've said this to my kids forever, and I say it to our players. Listen, let your intentions be known. Don't make me guess. Even when you're in the classroom and they're perceiving something via body language, take the guesswork out of it. Put the pressure on them, because it's a privilege to know where you're coming from and deal with it accordingly. Because if they guess wrong, it's not their fault. Where does that come from? I had to guess.
Yeah.
I thought something was a certain way for X amount of time, and it didn't happen
wasn't
to
that
be
way.
So do you know what I'm doing now? It's just all, oh man, DB, you're so good at sharing, and you're this, that, and the other. Listen, man, you know what it is? I don't want you guessing.
Yeah.
If I hurt, I'm gonna tell you I hurt. If I'm, if I have to tell a story, like this obviously was impromptu.
Yeah.
But if I have to be super forthright about my feelings or teachable moments, it's how I do radio now. It's the one thing that I said I would never do.
Yep.
When I first took the job, I'm not
no
sharing.
Personal life, nothing.
Nope. Yep. I'm not sharing any of me. Now that's all people care about. They don't care about the X's and O's.
That's almost always what people care about, right?
They don't care about pin downs or ball screens or.
I mean, sometimes they do, but they like
whether you know what I mean.
They like sitting here acting like they're having a conversation with us. And I'm the exact same way. I hate the guessing game, right? And that's all I did in my first marriage. And a lot of that was on me.
Yeah.
Right? But now, and I think this is one of the things you like about me, everybody knows where I stand pretty much all the time.
1,000%.
Pretty much. I'm very even. And here's the thing. Here's why I didn't do it before. Because it's vulnerable and it's scary.
So,
like when you put yourself out there, it's scary. But I'd rather people just know, hey, here's where I'm at.
The whole use me but not use me, but genuinely like being around me is kind of deep.
It is.
Because dudes don't say that.
Because I don't.
There are some people I just genuinely want to be around.
And that's how I feel when we hang out. That's why I text you. Like, I very rarely text you about work stuff or whatever. It's just like me thinking about stuff or whatever, right? Obviously, with the podcast, I do a little more work stuff now than I used to. But part of my, like, a huge insecurity for me is, did I say something wrong? Right? And especially with people that, like, I like or admire or want to be around that maybe I'm not around as much as I would like to be.
Got you.
Then, because like I would spend a ton of time with you, but I know you're the busiest man in the world. Like, or at least you're the busiest person I know, legitimately. And I'm not just saying that.
Listen, it's 80% of it is because I'm inefficient. Well, I could probably work
streamline
smarter.
A little bit.
Yeah, and I'm bad with protocol.
Oh, sure. Okay.
I'm the big picture guy. Yeah. I need somebody to tell me where to be, to make what time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. You need a personal assistant. Is what you
like,
need.
And I could knock it out.
Yeah. Because if people tell you where to go and what to do, boom.
Because I'm
ready.
super, yeah. Because I'm super competitive. So sometimes you just have, do you know, this is weird because I got to let you finish this story.
No, you're good.
But do you know why Sasha and I work?
Why's that?
Because she stopped waiting for me to say, and she just said, we just need to get this out of the way.
Yeah.
So we're going to set this up. I'm going to be here, do this. And you know what? It's pretty easy
you
that
do it.
way.
Yeah.
Because if you leave it open to me.
If you leave it open-ended, it's not going to happen.
It's not. Because I'm going to try to make sure that.
Because you want to leave yourself flexibility so that you don't have to say no to somebody else.
And I don't want you having to work off my schedule.
Yes.
Like, I'll figure it out.
But that's also part of where the value and worth thing comes in, because your time and everything is worth it to people who want you to do stuff.
Yeah,
and so they want to work around your schedule. They're happy to work around your
schedule. And I feel like.
And I think you haven't gotten that
I'm
yet.
still, I just feel like.
It's because you don't want to be a burden. Having somebody work around your schedule feels like you're burdening them.
Yeah.
Right. But for me, so going back to the texting thing, I think part of the reason, and because you're right, we have a little bit of a strange dynamic between us, right? Because of what I talked about where you're at in this career, where I'm at in this career, the fact that I do just want to.
And I never thought about that.
Right. And part of it, I think, why you've never thought about it is because I've been pretty open and honest with you about what I wanted.
That's what I was about to say. So
time.
even like 3 years ago, you're like, listen, man.
Before we knew each other at all.
You're like, I don't want this to sound. No, it was even longer than that. It was after a post game show.
Yeah, it was the first show we ever did together was after a post game show. Yeah.
You're like, ultimately, man, I just want to work with you.
Yeah.
And I was
was it 2019?
Probably. Might have been 1 year early. That may have been right.
I think it was 2019. It was no later than 2020.
Yeah. Oh, no. I thought it may have been 1 year earlier. So 2019 at the latest.
Yes. So we were doing a post-game show. I think it was the first time I had ever done a show with you.
Yeah.
Because you guys did not have me subbing in the morning at all. Because you thought I was just a Creighton guy at the time.
Yeah. I don't know what I thought, but probably.
Well, that's what you told me. You told me.
Yeah. Range. I worried about range.
Yeah, you worried about my range because most of the stuff I was doing at the time was Creighton. And for me, that's what was available, so I did what was available, right?
Yeah.
And so you worried about range.
That's right. I did worry about range.
And then, which is kind of funny now, but.
Oh, I know. Because now it's like, who's got the ultra range? It's like, who's Mr. Uber? Yeah, okay. But yeah, that is funny.
So
that's hilarious.
We did this show together, and I texted you after the show.
Well, it was a hard show because you put me on the hot seat.
I did. Was it Illinois?
I almost said Michigan State. It might have been.
But it was a game they lost.
Yeah,
it was a game they lost.
That was a good chance.
If you just play the odds in the last few years.
Yeah.
And it was the first time we'd done a show together. I thought it went great, and I think you appreciated that I wasn't intimidated.
Yep.
Because I think some people get a little intimidated by the Damon betting of it all.
Completely.
And I think you liked that. I think you liked that I was willing to put you on the spot.
Isn't it weird?
Because I didn't know any better.
Isn't it weird how I don't really want? You know how I function best. It's a two-way learning street.
Yeah.
Because secretly, selfishly, I need to get some value out of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like, that's why I like to take calls.
Yeah.
Even if I don't agree.
No, but if you get some.
I want to learn
right
something.
Calls.
I want to learn.
You get value out of, right? And part of the reason I don't always like to take calls is because I don't feel like I get good value out of them sometimes, right? Like it's a double-edged sword with phone calls and stuff. That's why I like tweets because I can pick and choose a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
But I texted you, I think as I was driving home from that show, and I said, I'll summarize, but basically just like, man, I just want to work with you more.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I had so much fun doing that. Like that was. I was like, in a different world, we should work together a lot more. Kind of paraphrasing. And so I think that's part of why you never felt like, is this guy using me?
Yeah.
Or anything like that. Because I was so
and I knew exactly where you stood.
Yeah. And you always have.
Yeah.
Right. And the only reason I was willing to do that, because that was a scary text for me to say. Because we didn't know each other at all.
No.
We didn't know each other even a little bit.
Nope.
You had seen me around and you like dap me up or whatever, but like we had not had a real conversation off air ever.
And I said, the funny thing that I like about you is because my boss at that time did too, was you would just put it out there.
Yeah.
So I could always appreciate that.
And 2 years before that, before I had gotten divorced and all that kind of stuff, I never would have. Because my biggest thing, I was so scared of putting myself out there and having it not go the way I wanted to.
That's the same reason I didn't want to get into the business.
And then what I figured out after getting divorced and going to therapy and whatever is if you don't ask for it, you eliminate any chance of getting what you want. Right? And so I'm like, well,
hey, shoot, you know what's funny?
I'll just ask for it.
That's why you and Chris get along.
Yeah. You know what's funny?
I'm dead dog serious Gorman. That's why you guys get along.
Before I had ever met Gorman.
Yeah.
He started following me on Twitter for some reason. Probably because of you. And so I just DM'd him. I was like, hey, you guys are doing some cool stuff over there. Would love to be a part of it.
Hey.
I just straight up cold DM'd him.
Hey, so when our very first meeting, and because he was, so he and Bill were they were in the meeting together.
Yeah.
This is when we're first trying to see, okay, what's DB going to do, right? And I'm like, when I got up, because I just met Bill first.
Mhm.
Then, um, he introduced me to Chris, and I go, I can see why this works.
Yeah.
Because Chris is kind of the heavy,
Okay.
where he'll tell you exactly what he's thinking. It may or may not hurt your feelings, but at least you kind of know. And
Where you stand.
right,
Yeah.
and Bill was kind of the guy that like made sure if it hurt, it didn't hurt too bad, and if it was some love, he'd bring you back down to earth.
Yeah.
Right.
He's the leveler. He
So I
levels
was like,
things out.
oh
He
God, I
levels
could
things
kind
out.
of see
Yeah.
I could see how this kind of works. But I don't ever leave a conversation with Corman, and I'm like, I wonder where he stands.
Sure. Right.
Now, you know what I mean? Like, now the execution of all that, I'm not saying all of that, but I'm just saying at least the vision that's casted. I like, and I think that's what you like, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I had to,
Because I think it takes a certain amount of courage to put big ideas out there, whether they're for yourself, whether they're for like a company, because big ideas are hard to execute, right? And so it was, for a long time, it was scary for me to say out loud, like, yeah, I want to do radio. I would love to be on the air every day. Like, it was scary for me to say that because there's no guarantee it's ever going to happen, right? Like, there was no guarantee that was ever something in the cards for me because I didn't come up from, like, I just started filling in because eventually somebody says no and they have to call the next name on the list. So I just kept being the next name on the list until I started being the first name on the list, right? And so, like, it was scary for me to put what I wanted out there. And then I realized, okay, but if I don't put it out there, nobody knows I want it. And maybe they want me to do it. Maybe they want me to be on air full time. Maybe they want me to do a podcast with Damon Benning or whatever, right? And so I just say it. And if they say no, they say no, but at least I know where I stand now, right? And that's the valuable thing about it, is knowing where you stand.
Do you know when that came to fruition was during COVID? And what'd the caller call you?
Oh, it was like a liberal hack or something.
Yeah, he called you. He's like, when did you start doing radio with this liberal hack? And the way that you received it,
yeah,
and just kept ticking, I was like,
yeah, I remember that.
Remember that? I dude just was like reckless.
Yeah, just went in.
You ate it up. We were talking about McDonald's and minimum wage and skilled labor and going to work and stuff.
I believe I said, I don't think I'm a liberal. I just care about people.
And I was like, giddy up. Here we go. Like,
you got to be able to take it.
And quietly, since this is a baby man crush, like I knew that we were going to
be okay,
be able to function because, I mean, people talk crazy to me all the time about stuff and some of the ideologies. And it's just like, people are like, why do you engage? And I'm like,
why not?
And hey, what if they're right?
Yeah, what if you learn something? What if you learn something?
Like, what if they're right?
Like, people wouldn't believe what I believed 10 years ago versus what I believe now. And it's because you start listening and you're like, oh, maybe I do believe a little differently than I thought.
Kind of like after 25 years coming full circle on Creighton. Listen, I knew in like 2016 I was in trouble. I was like, yeah.
You're like, shoot. I like this Coach Matt guy.
Listen, do you know, I'll tell you, is it 2 years before that, do you know who the catalyst was?
Who?
Rob Anderson.
Really?
He was so good to me and didn't have to be.
Interesting.
I'm
now look at you. Creighton homer, just like me.
That's everybody. I saw Altman at the chiropractor the year before he left. And he just was not. And I'm like, you know what? All these preconceived notions
maybe I got it wrong.
They were my own.
Yeah.
Like I was dead wrong.
Yeah.
I was dead wrong.
And that's one of the most powerful things you can be willing to say is maybe I got it wrong.
So now when I wear the quarter zip and people are like, oh, man, you like your boy T Phrase. I was like, no, man, good people just being good to me, man. I'm still a public school guy at the university. I'm a state school guy. Like I told you, I'm just all in on Coach Mack.
Well, that was not where I expected any of this to go.
But that maybe I don't have any idea what just happened.
Maybe that's my favorite pod we've done so far. Really great stuff. I appreciate you being willing to open up and be vulnerable for people.
It's an accident.
And well, yeah, I apologize if it was my fault. But
No, you don't.
No, not really, because it was great. That's Damon Benning. I'm Ravi Lulla. Shane Schillerberg producing for us. This has been another episode of Dishing It.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.